Hey everybody, usually I talk about disappointing video games, things that didn't really work out. That was last week's video. But today I want to talk about a positive thing, and that's genre-defying video games. I've talked about this before in certain aspects, and I use the term genre-defying when describing certain games. But today I want to talk about those games that truly defined video game genres. So if you're excited about that and want to see more, like and subscribe, ring the bell, whatever, just do that stuff for me. Thank you. We're going to get the obvious out of the way with this one, and that is basically anything made by Nintendo in the 80s and early 90s. They were defining video game genres because they had not really been defined yet. You had games like Mario, of course, defining the platforming genre, and still to this day shifts it in a way that just defines platformers. And Mario just, as a game as a whole, just completely shifted what we understood video games to be. They had before then been very simple. You had things like Pong, or even certain platformers like Pitfall, or the terrible E.T. game we talked about last week. But Mario came across and just was like, hey, here's how you do it right. Here's how you run from one side of the screen to the other. You jump, you kill things, you shoot fireballs. Like, it was just all these things that were just like, this is what video games are supposed to be like. And since then, that formula has just been used and expanded on and reinvented in a way that can only be attributed to the original Mario. Games like Legend of Zelda that define the genre of crawling through dungeons, having weapon upgrades, like all these different things, unique enemies, that made Legend of Zelda kind of define that genre of games. And even went on to, when we got into like for the third dimension with the N64, kind of reinvented that kind of gameplay. And just Zelda's always kind of been on the forefront. Maybe not so much today, but they do always change it up. It's like the most recent ones, they added the open world, which really kind of redefined the Zelda games, not the genre itself. But you can't look back and go, Zelda didn't define the genre, because it did at that time. Again, I bring these games up at the beginning because there wasn't really a genre to define yet, so that's why they kind of are the creators of these genres, because they were really the first ones to do it in a way. One last Nintendo game, and this is solely because I remember playing it on the Nintendo first and then the Sega Genesis, and that's Street Fighter 2, completely shifting fighting games. Now, they had been there before. The original Street Fighter was a fighting game, but creating what would lead to what we know as fighting games in this day and age was Street Fighter 2, and just how seamless the combat between two characters felt. It didn't feel jagged, it didn't feel rough, it just felt smooth, it felt good, and it just kind of created what we now know as 2D fighters, which, in my opinion, if you're going to play a fighting game, it has to be 2D, like it has to be just two people standing on one side of the screen and then combating. I understand arena fighters, I like those too in a way, but I think Street Fighter 2 just defined the fighting game genre. I mean, just cutting Hadoukens and Shoryukens and sonic booms and tiger uppercuts and all that stuff that just created just a feeling of enjoyment from fighting games that went on to just span. I mean, there's so many fighting games. I'm not even going to get started listing them, but there's so many, and I think a lot of them will attribute Street Fighter 2 as being that game that just kind of started it all and got fighting games to where they are today. It wouldn't be a fake gaming video if I didn't talk about Final Fantasy in some way. And my first Final Fantasy game, my favorite one, and the one that I think defined the RPG genre in this way, is Final Fantasy VII. Now, there have been plenty of Final Fantasy games that had open worlds, maps to run across, and things like that, but they were all segmented in a way. Final Fantasy VII felt like the first 3D RPG with just an open, expansive world that led to where we are today. It's like you can't play a regular JRPG without there being some sort of open world aspect to it. I think a lot of people look back at Final Fantasy VII and the subsequent ones after that just make you say, if it's a JRPG and we need a world, it has to be expansive. Now, I know there's some that maybe don't agree with that, but I think that Final Fantasy VII was a genre defier in what JRPGs should be when being built. They should be fantastical, they should be large, they should be expansive, they should be beautiful to look at, and, that's just, I think that's the way JRPGs are these days. And I just finished Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and they went back to that. I know that the remake was a little linear, but with Rebirth, they went back, and it felt truly like I was playing Final Fantasy VII again, with just a big, expansive world full of stupid side quests. Let's talk about another game that I've spent way too much time in. I haven't played in a few years, but that is World of Warcraft. Now, our online RPGs existed before World of Warcraft, but World of Warcraft was the one to just define what an MMORPG was. It was the first one where people were like, this is it. This is a massively multiplayer online RPG. And it has been that way ever since. They dip, they rise, count goes down of players, it goes up, it fluctuates. But overall, World of Warcraft has been the most consistent MMO since it came out in 2004 or 2005. And I don't think it's ever really going to go away. People have their complaints. But I think it's understood that World of Warcraft was just a genre defier. It changed the way that MMORPGs were built, planned, created, and just everybody. I think World of Warcraft is like that blueprint for like how an MMORPG should be made. I play WoW so much over the years, but I can't get back into it anymore. I refuse to. If you're like me, as great as that game is, you get to the end, you just start running out of stuff to do. I think that's something they never figured out, and I think most RPGs never figured out, is like, once you get to the end, what do you do? You're out of stuff to do. Portal. Portal, it's one of those wonderful puzzle games that I think no game has ever really gotten close to, but everyone tries to copy in some way. Portal and Portal 2 especially, I really love Portal 2. Just define the genre of like platforming puzzle-based games. Using the portals to get to certain places, to solve certain puzzles, was just something that had never been done before in that way, with that kind of physics-based stuff that only, the Half-Life engine and stuff was able to do. And I think nowadays, if you look at some of the videos on my channel, you'll see how many rip-offs of Portal there are in some way. Now, they may not use the Portal mechanics, but they use those ideas that Portal was built on to make their game and say like, oh, well, we want it physics-based, or we want it to, you have to use certain logic to get through here. And like, it's all coming from what Portal kind of got us thinking. Portal's a thinking game in a way. And I think that's what a lot of people who make games reminiscent of Portal go, I want to think about Portal and take what makes that game good and use it to make my game good as well. I don't think anything will ever hit the way Portal or Portal 2 hits, but people try to get close. And of course, without Portal, the genre would probably not be what it is today. Two more games to talk about. The first one is PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, created or at least defined the genre of battle royales. The 1 in 100, and you got to make it to number one. You got to be the last one to survive in a big arena. They get smaller and smaller. PUBG. I never played PUBG. I've never played a game of PUBG in my life, but I did watch a lot of people play it, so I can understand why it's so great. It's just not for me. But you can't deny that it defined the genre. If you go, what's the first battle royale you played? People over a certain age, over like 14, will probably say PUBG or something reminiscent of that. PUBG was just a hit when it came out. It was massive, made plenty of streamers famous, professional eSports players famous, and it goes down as the genre defier of battle royales. And to follow up on that, I can't go without talking about Fortnite. It is a battle royale, much like PUBG, but they twisted it in a way that kind of made it its own thing, which is adding the construction element, which I know now they have this non-build mode, and that's what most people play, I think. But it defined the genre of battle royales with a twist, I think. Saying like it, so you could say it was kind of, inspired by PUBG in a way, or many of those other battle royales, but it shifted the genre in a way that made it unique and defined a certain genre of gaming where it's like, it's not just about shooting enemy players, it's about construction and getting vantage points and like being smart about what you do, which made it a little more complicated. I know it's kind of been dumbed down and now it's about doing emotes and buying skins or whatever, but when it first came out, it was a genre defier. So that's just a few games I think define certain genres in video games. I know there are plenty more, or you may think the ones that I chose were not the ones that defined a genre, and that's cool. If you have an opinion on this, let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you about it, see what games you think define genres. You could have picked something else that defined a specific genre. Maybe you played an MMORPG that you think is a little bit better than WoW, or you played an RPG that's not Final Fantasy VII, or you didn't grow up playing Mario and Zelda when the NES was out like us old farts. Let me know down below. I'd love to talk to you about it. But anyways, thank you for watching. This has been the green screen video of the week. I will see you next week with another one. If you have any ideas, I love taking feedback from the community. So if you have an idea for a topic you'd like me to cover, let me know. I'm sure most people have stopped watching by now. But thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.